On this episode of the InsurTech Geek podcast, we're talking about revolutionizing insurance fund management and the healthcare experience with Porter Leslie from Ametros. The InsurTech Geek podcast is all about technology that's transforming and disrupting the insurance world. We'll be interviewing guests and doing deep dives into specific tech we see changing the industry. We're taking you on a journey through insurance tech, so enjoy the ride and geek out. This episode of the InsurTech Geek podcast is brought to you by Terra. Learn more about our cloud-native risk management information system at terra.insure. And we are back with another great episode of the InsurTech Geek podcast. I'm your host, James Benham, the InsurTech Geek. With me, the most interesting man in insurance, Rob Galbraith. Rob, how's it going?
It's going well, James. Going well. It's definitely cooler temps here in Texas, and holiday season is around the corner.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. I mean, it actually got close to freezing. It got down to like 40, then it got to 38, and then I was like, "Oh my gosh, we're in December." But you know, it manages to get up into the 50s and 60s every day because it's still Texas. God bless Texas. Love being here. But with us today, a guy not in Texas. He's up where they're wicked smart. They park the car in the yard. With us, Porter Leslie from Ametros. You in Boston today, Porter?
Yeah, hey guys, up here in Boston, I think we cleared 32 degrees, so it's a good day up here in Massachusetts.
Yeah, it's a balmy 34 or whatever it is over there. I just got off the phone with another friend from Boston, like right before this podcast. So I'm feeling very Boston right now.
Oh yeah, then you gotta acknowledge it's sweater weather up here.
The sweater weather. We're gonna have some clam chowder.
That's right.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good winter. It's gonna be a good Christmas. Exciting times in insurance. Exciting times in technology, and it's been a wild year. It's been a really, I don't know if it's just, you always, when I grew up, I always heard older people saying, "Oh, the years fly by the older we get." But the older I get, the faster the years fly by. I cannot believe 2024 is coming to a close. I cannot believe we're at the end of this year. I remember New Year's Eve like it was yesterday, but it wasn't. It was 330 days ago. So we're wrapping up a calendar year. For many of us, we're wrapping up a fiscal year, and it's a crazy time. Porter, we know what you do right now. You're president, you're CEO of Ametros. You were a president for 5 years, and you became CEO. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but before we do, I want to talk about kind of where were you born and raised, and let's just go back to your childhood. Like, where were you born and raised, and what did you want to be when you were a kid?
Thanks, James. Yeah, I don't think I ever dreamt of being in insurance, or certainly insurance settlements, fund management. That one's usually not on your dream board as a kid. But I would tell you, I'm from the South. I'm from the Virginia, North Carolina area, and then the deep South. So at the age of 12, moved with my family down to South America. So I lived for a while in Uruguay and Brazil before coming back to the U.S. And then after that upbringing, I spent a lot of time. I've been in 9 different states in the U.S., but most of my time has been in the Northeast. So went to school up in New York, and now I'm hitting the decade mark in Boston. So I had to convert to Celtics and some of the local teams up here, really get into it.
Well, it is Sports City, USA, is it not? I mean, they are fanatical about their pro teams in Boston.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it makes it a blast to go to the games, and pretty much around the office, we always have a good time talking about sports. I'll give you an example. When Tom Brady was still with the Patriots, our office threw him a 40th birthday party. Now he didn't show up, but we just had clips of Tom Brady running all day, so just to celebrate him at the time.
He didn't show up. I mean, we dropped into his DMs on Instagram and on X, and
he was invited, of course.
There have been some amazing. I always like to talk about like these Grand Slam years of a city winning just a whole bunch of titles. But like 2018, 2018, the Red Sox win the World Series, the Patriots win the Super Bowl. Like there's some crazy things that have happened in Boston where they'll have something like that goes on where they'll have so many. The Celtics won in 2008, the Bruins won in 2011. Yeah. I mean, you're looking at like the last 15 years. Every major sports team in Boston has won a national championship or world championship. Which you kind of got to laugh when you say that. if we count Canada as another country, and evidently it's going to be the 51st state. If you didn't know, you didn't hear this week that we recently extended an offer to Trudeau to be governor of the 51st state of the United States. But I mean, it's just a wild city because there's always something going on there. Like 18 major universities there too. I mean, it's
totally, yeah. Some great schools. At the Celtics, they just won, and it's just some great tradition too. And I know, James, you mentioned your daughter's looking at school up here, right?
She is, yeah. We just went and did. She's a musical theater major and at a boarding school right now. She's a senior, and so she's applying to musical theater programs. And Boston Conservatory is one of the oldest and best in the country, and so we did auditions there 2 weeks ago, and we'll see. They only take 1% of applicants. Lonely 1%. So there's a 99% shot she doesn't get admitted, but she is exceptional, and we'll see where she ends up. But it was a fun process, and of course, I love coming to Boston. Let's. How did you? I mean, certainly, I don't think any kid, maybe like 2 or 3 kids. Like, I want to meet the kids that want to be in insurance. I want to know about them. Like, what as a child has occurred that made them want to be in insurance? Because I wanted to be. Well, my dad had an engineering degree, but he owned a Teflon company. But I heard he was an engineer, so I thought that meant that he drove trains for a living until I was at least 12, and then I understood what he did. Like when I was 11 or 12. I thought, man, I could drive trains. I wanted to be a pilot, which I am, but not a pro pilot. I wanted to be in the military. I wanted to be everything that little boys want to be, right? Like you have the standard list of things that you want to be. Insurance is never on that list. So how did you wind up in insurance? What was the path?
It's funny you mentioned that, James. So my dad actually worked in insurance. For the first part of his career, and then he was an athletic director. He taught, he coached tennis and had some tennis and soccer teams he coached. But I never thought that actually would have steered me in the other direction because you never want to be your parents, right? It's like those progressive commercials. You're training not to be your dad. But he really had no impact on me getting involved in Ametros and what we do. I credit that to one of my best friends, and really what I've tried to steer my career around is just joining up and working with great people. So one of my good friends from undergrad got involved with Ametros, and it was a startup, and so I joined forces with him. And really at the time I had been working in banking, so I knew a little bit about banking and some healthcare. That was my background, and he knew a lot about insurance and some of the things we do with Medicare and compliance that come with insurance settlements. So that was kind of a meeting of the minds when I got involved with Ametros back in 2015.
Yeah, like just short summary, like what Ametros does.
Yeah, so we are the largest player in the country that manages medical funds from a settlement, from an insurance claim settlement. And, so we're typically partnering with the insurance carriers, the payers, they could be large employers, also with the attorneys, the plaintiff attorneys, when they've got a claim that's chronic or severe and it gets to the point where, and, these are bodily injury casualty claims where they want to move the claim on and settle it. So about 3/4 of what we do is in the work comp space, and the other quarter is general liability, auto accidents, slip and falls, things like that. But when it comes down to, the mantra in insurance you hear a lot is a good claim is a settled claim, right? So they can move it off the book. I think what we realized in our early days is that sounds great for the payer, but for the injured person, how do they navigate now taking on all that healthcare burden on their own? And so that was the genesis for Ametros. Our product's called CareGuard, and we built up a lot of tools to receive the settlement funds for the injured person, And then we look and feel almost like a health plan for them, where we're helping them spend their settlement monies on things related to their injury. So if they had a knee injury and they get $150,000 to settle the claim, we're setting up an account that pays for all their prescriptions, doctor visits, surgeries related to that knee injury. And that's really where we plug in. What got us going in this direction is Medicare. The federal government came out in the early 2000s and said, hey, there was a GAO study. They found that they had lost tens of billions of dollars to people who got a settlement
Then use their
and
Medicare
then
for their, yeah.
exactly spent it on something, and then they billed Medicare. And so Medicare said, enough of that. If you get money from other coverage, it's fine that you settle, but we'd like to know the amount you got. And then what they did that really created the need for our service, they said to the injured person, we want to know every year how you spent that money. So if you got $150,000 for your knee, every year you need to show us, now do you have 140? Where did that 10,000 go? Because they said if you run out of that money, then Medicare should pick up coverage. So it's almost like you have this big deductible from your settlement. So we looked at it in our early days and said, that's just crazy. That somebody could be one day, working in a factory or driving a truck or in a hospital, working as a nurse. And the next day, for the next 30, 40 years, they accept a settlement. They're going to report to the government this specialized type of reporting. And if they screw it up, it's not just like you screwed up your taxes and you file an amendment. If you screw this up, Medicare cuts off your benefits. They won't pay your next bill for that injury. So it's a really drastic.
Yeah, it's a major deal.
Thing. Yeah. So that was kind of the seeds that were sown early days for us. And I think over time, James and Rob, we realized we had a great opportunity to build a great member experience, we call the injured person. The better the member experience is when they get their funds from the settlement, the more likely they are to accept the settlement. If I can tell you, rather than just getting a check in your mailbox and having a couple hundred pages of reporting to do it, what if you got 24/7 somebody you can call who understands settlements? What if you just show an insurance looking card to the doctor, and we as a professional organization review your bill, make sure there's no duplicates, get you a savings and pay on your behalf. You can check it in your online app, your portal. You can chat with us, text with us. Everything we built along the way was making that experience better. And that really made, for both sides, the payer or the attorney or the injured person, it made them more willing to think about settlement as a plausible way to move quickly to a better state of mind, a better position, and not to be in this kind of conflicting arena with the insurance company at times.
Absolutely. Rob?
Yeah, Porter. So it sounds like there was this new kind of market that was created from the regulation. I don't know, were there pre-existing companies? And then after, this move by Medicare, were there other competitors leap into the space? Maybe you can just kind of talk through maybe some of the strategic decisions from an early day standpoint that, Ametros kind of had to make. And I'm sure some of that tied back to technological decisions that you made as well.
Yeah, great question, Rob. I think like the first beating heart, like mission driven differentiator we had, there were a couple mom and pop companies that were trying to offer the service, whether it was a law firm or someone who kind of knew about Medicare. But I think if I were to join your podcast and tell you that I've got a great Medicare compliance solution for insurance companies, like I might get a little traction with you guys, right? This is the InsurTech Geek podcast. But what we realize is for an injured person, like that means nothing, right? They have no idea what helping Medicare secondary payer compliance has to do. So our early days, it was about CareGuard. That's the product. It's about caring for you and protecting your benefits. And like we built around that, and our focus was on making the member's life easier. And like everything we kind of oriented ourselves to this day is all about making that healthcare journey easier. So we kind of had a good North Star, which we keep in mind. And then the benefit of, I think, a couple of things lining up for us is we had a couple of private equity funds that expressed interest and invested in the business along the way. That gave great just institutional knowledge and capital as we scaled up. And then in January of this year, we were acquired by one of the top 25 largest banks in the country, which is Webster Bank. And that's kicked us into a whole nother gear of growth because they saw this market, they saw the service we were providing as really the dominant player, and they said that this it fits well with their mission, and it also is something that they've done before. So they're the largest health savings account administrator as a bank in the country, and so they kind of understood this healthcare insurance, uh, you know, combination, and that it can produce a lot of great deposits for a bank. So I think it's a mixture. First, you got to have the North Star, but then you got to have the resources and the partners that can really help you execute on it. I left out probably most important too, is great people within the business. And so we went from, a handful of folks in our early days serving a couple hundred people who had settled their cases. So now we're about 250 employees and we have about 30,000 settlements that we're managing. So, you got to get some of the right people in early and then over time get those folks who want to innovate and really make the company better.
And you actually pay this out over the lifetime of the claimant, right? Like, so this is the rest of their life. You have to manage and report on this and pay out.
Exactly. Yeah. So the average settlement we get, it's usually somebody in their mid 50s to 60s. There's about a 25-year lifespan remaining. But to your point, James, we get somewhere it's somebody in their 20s or 30s. It might be 50 years where they've received either a lump sum of a couple 100,000 and said, hey, manage this for 40, 50 years. And I always like to challenge people. What if you got your annual paycheck on January 1st? How do you think you'd be looking come November, December? Would you have money left or not? So it's a huge amount of time for these folks to think about. And we had to make sure we built to gain the trust of not only the members, the injured folks, but the industry is something super robust, right? Everyone needs to know you're going to be around in a few decades as these settlements are still being spent over time.
Okay, cool. I mean, are there a lot of people that don't have a manager for this? I mean, is this really, or does everybody have somebody? Is there an Ametros competitor that covers everybody that receives these now because the reporting is so complicated?
No, so it's still early days for our space, and we think we're capturing in a given year maybe 10 to 15% of the folks that are getting settlements that have Medicare, compliance needs, and we're probably 10 times the size of any other player in the space. So we're by far the dominant player, but there's still a ton of folks getting checks to their mailbox and not getting any support. And I think that's one of the other things that always drew us to the space is, we estimate there's over $20 billion being settled every year out of the insurance ecosystem. So when you factor in work comp and general liability settlements, and for most of the executives in the insurance field, they think that's like a happy, end of the rainbow, right? They finally got the claim off their books. What we realize is that's the beginning of the journey for a lot of folks. They get an amount of money there. They're faced with a whole nother set of problems. They're kind of on their own. And so there's tens of thousands of these settlements every year happening and billions of dollars moving. And, so that gives us hope. We know our work's not done. We could be 5 or 10 times the size of the company and still just be scratching the surface on this massive settlement space.
And all of their benefits are at risk. All of their all the folks that are underserved or unserved are all putting their benefits at risk long term. Their federal benefits.
Yeah, if they're not doing the reporting properly, and there's these Medicare, they're called Medicare set-aside settlements, then they can really get tangled up. They can definitely impact, especially the body parts that are getting reported. But yeah, it can just become a whole set of frustrations for them, which ripples back to the attorney that represented them, and ultimately to the carrier. Right? They can come back and say, "Hey, I didn't understand this, or I wasn't equipped to navigate this. So, you need to reopen my file, or we need to talk about this and create some administrative hassle for the payer."
Are you a technology company or a software or a service company or both?
Both. We use a lot of tech tools, to interact, but I'd say maybe tech-enabled services, kind of where we land. We have over 100 folks on the phones talking to our members. And we had to build some unique proprietary tech to like a rules engine, a claim system, and some consumer facing portals. But we weren't naive. Like we didn't try to recreate the wheel. We used what was already out there and just had to kind of optimize it, tweak it for our use case.
Cool. Rob?
Yeah, Porter, I'm maybe you can walk through a little bit at a very high level, right? What does your tech ecosystem kind of look like? Because the way I'm imagining it, so you've got every member, right? And they've got some type of account and almost like a policy administration system, right? Or that kind of equivalent or a claim system that an insurance company might have. I'm sure you interact with the claim system. So I don't know if you've got some type of APIs or you work with each partner, maybe you connect the law firms as well. So maybe you can just talk a little bit high level about what your tech ecosystem looks like. You kind of mentioned it sounds like a combination of kind of build versus buy. And then like how has that evolved over the last 10 years or so?
Sure. Yeah, Rob. So and you described it pretty accurately. We realized that where there's already a great system built, let's not go, recreate it. The unique thing about our space is there's never been another at scale administrator of settlement funds, right? So when we went out and we talked to different claim system folks or folks in the insurance space and said, hey, can you set up a system that receives money, has a very specific set of injury codes and benefits that it'll pay per every member, not a policy for thousands of people, just every single individual. And then can you spin off a consumer facing portal that looks and feels good and that interacts with them to explain it? We were always left kind of, high and dry. So we felt like there were different components that were out there in the ecosystem. So we built a homegrown core system, which we call our care hub, that really processes, if Rob, you had a settlement that we're administering, what are the injury codes? What are all the benefits? What's the amount of money you have? A lot of these settlements get funded over time with an annuity. So we have a lot of checks to make sure we got your funds and there's some banking functionality around that, rendering your balance to you, all that good stuff. And then there's rules decisioning around should we be paying this bill based on Rob's specific injury. You might have injured your left knee, and we get a doctor bill in, and it's your right hip. That's going to flag for us all sorts of things when it comes to your medications too. So that's really our homegrown kind of secret sauce. Around that, we built typical type of CRM setup. We have Microsoft Dynamics managing a lot of our contacts out there. We have a homegrown app and portal, which was just some of the functionality we had to bring out of our core that we built. I think over time we might navigate more to something that's like out of the box there. But yeah, some of the secret sauce is in that rules engine, and then the way we interface with our clients, at least on the payer end, Rob, you might have been alluding to, is some of their claim systems we have connectivity where we can pull in data with file feeds or APIs. I guess what I'd share with you guys, what we learned along the way is you can field of dreams it and build a lot of things and believe that they will come. But I think we've really waited for our clients to say they will use it, because sometimes you build an interface and you think this is awesome, and then 6 months go by and your client hasn't even looked at it, right? And there's so many things that grab their attention. If you can't unify your value prop and your service into the one or two things they log into and they care about, it can be a challenge. So we've built what we needed to survive in our ecosystem, and then we tie in almost where they dictate, hey, this is how I want to get you data, and this is what I want back from you. So whether we're feeding them some stuff in Snowflake and they have their own data analysis, or giving them Power BI, or they just want a PowerPoint that breaks it down for them, there's a bunch of different ways we can engage, and we try to follow their lead.
So let's talk about tech for a second, and really the future of your platform. Certainly, and I use artificial intelligence to analyze code, write code, build software, analyze documents, generate images. There's just a plethora of solutions now out there in artificial intelligence. A lot of what you do, needs a human touch. and then some of what you do can probably be automated. Like what are the big sea changes you see that are coming right now in your space? Because there's many underserved claimants are out there that need a solution like yours. It looks like you guys have a truckload of upside potential there. So which I'm sure Webster Bank is excited about as your acquirer. What do you think's coming that really changes the game for y'all and for the industry?
Yeah, a couple of things get me pretty excited. And I mean, I think there's this vision that like the AI could do everything, right? But like you mentioned, James, there needs to be humans in the loop or engaged in certain parts of the process. We've realized there's some just routine stuff that we can offload, whether it's, document scanning, grabbing certain parts of the process and putting them in our system. Some things that before we were using like robot process automation for, but now the AI can do it more intelligently.
Well,
So we've got
it's technically still RPA. It's just a super advanced form of RPA.
yeah, exactly.
Like if you look at like the latest feature from Claude, Claude AI, Anthropic, you can actually use Claude and Anthropic in computer mode, where it essentially will operate the computer application for you, which is a total disruptor to the entire RPA. And like if I were Blue Prism and UiPath, I'd be freaking out right now because now Claude can actually use your computer and do all the tasks for you.
You nailed it. That stuff is totally converging, which made me feel good that we started with process automation, and then I think some of the AI tools are going to get there faster than some of the existing incumbents. Like we had spent time with UiPath and some of the other guys.
Yeah.
So some of the basic stuff, which hopefully most of the folks in the industry are doing in terms of document scanning, records retrieval, that type of stuff, and just organizing things is like table stakes. I'd say our clients on the carrier side, at least in the work comp space, I think a lot of them are still in the like security. How do we ring fence this AI tool zone? Because when we talk to them, that's like I don't see a lot of them really deploying it yet. And what fascinates me about the tools, they're out there and everybody's kind of aware, but it's like who's using them? What we see is, and there's folks like us that are like kind of partner vendors. We can move a lot faster and experiment. Of course, we're letting our clients know, and we have security docs and all that. In the settlement space, the plaintiff attorneys, they're just standalone law firms. Some of them are grabbing AI tools and having them analyze accident records and medical records, and so they're less concerned about a bajillion levels of security. And so, in some places, I think it's creating a bit of a mismatch of who has the advantage or who can move faster. So that's kind of fascinating. I mean, for us, we do have this whole kind of bill pay or claims management. So there's the organization piece. What I get excited about too is some of the like sentiment analysis. You can have the AI letting you know how your rep's doing on a call. Some of the sales practice with like some of the voice AI is pretty phenomenal right now to have your agents work through test cases or test sales prospects. That's pretty neat. So that's some of the stuff we're experimenting with right now. I think in our space, there's so much upward growth that, we're budgeting to grow our employee count another 20-30% next year. But I'm excited about the effectiveness. It might feel like we grew, 50%, because if we can get some of these tools going, then for us, it's not about replacing job. It's about getting higher output from everybody who's on the team.
Yeah. Same people, higher output. Right. I mean, it's at the end of the day, I think as an economy, we have to say we're looking for a higher GDP per capita is really what we're looking for. We're not, you don't want people to be unemployed. Actually, you want everybody to be gainfully employed, and you don't want everybody. There's a huge hazard to putting everybody on universal basic income because they stopped trying because communism failed every single time it's been tried. So that's like you really want everyone productive in a society. You want them to be able to work and produce. You just want a higher GDP per capita because it results in just a better quality of life. That's kind of how I view the problem. Maybe I'm oversimplifying it. Rob?
Porter, I'm just curious. My mind's going in a ton of different directions, and obviously we want to, still keep the listeners and the viewers out there, because I'm sure we can have probably a 2-3 hour conversation. So, being mindful of keeping it, somewhat concise. But, just curious, like some of your thoughts on, you mentioned already some directions you're thinking about going. I think about natural language, processing, natural language understanding, fraud detection, chat capabilities. Do you have texting relationships with folks, or do they still, is it just that level of care that you still need the, call center agent kind of person? It's not, maybe doesn't lend itself to that, or, virtual assistant, things like that. So yeah, just maybe any quick hitters on any of those topics that you see promise in, or are actively using today.
Yeah, great question, Rob. There's a few areas that we think are like low risk, where we're using some automation or some AI. Uh, so, say, for instance, we get doctors' offices asking us, when is their check coming, right? I, we don't need a human responding to that. So first they can go to a portal, but if they really want to call us, that's really just somebody checking a screen and telling you the check's in the mail, or or matching up the claim and saying, yeah, this one's in the queue. So what we've done is experimented in low risk areas where we see high reward. Like our service, it is super unique, and it's pretty high dollar settlements in general. So we want to have a real white glove touch to it, and we want them to get a real human. I could foresee down the line some of the easy requests, either making it self-service, and that's a big theme, right, in the industry, is just how much can you push self-service, or self-service with the AI bot. I think some of that would be powerful. I want it to be really, really like they understand. I think our member base and our clients expect us to deliver really high caliber service, and so I wouldn't want folks to think they're talking to a human. It's actually a robot that doesn't understand them. Those are some of the pitfalls I think we're naturally trying to avoid. But yes, your comment on texting is huge. We find on emails it's like 2 to 3% response rate. On texting, it's like 10 times, like 20, 30%. And a lot of our members now, they just want to text with us, or they just want to chat in the app. And so if they have a basic question that flows through there, then that does look like, low hanging fruit that we can start to automate. But we're being super mindful and prudent about when and where and how we disclose, if that is a robot on the other end.
And Porter, I have a follow up. Just for our audience, do they know? Do your members know that everything's coming from Ametros, or are some of your solutions white label, where they think they're working, with their law firm, or they're working with the insurance firm's claim settlement? I'm just curious, like, how aware are they that they're interacting with Ametros versus other parties that are probably involved?
Yeah, so we control all the branding, that it's Ametros and CareGuard. We haven't done any white labeling. The challenge for us, and now on the other flip side, kind of the strength that we've developed out of it, is when both sides come together, and it can be contentious, the insurance company and an attorney firm, they're looking for a neutral, trusted third party that would receive these monies and help this person, on their way. So, we really drive towards that position of neutrality, and being, once this is all settled out, we're helping the injured person. So everything we operate is under our own brand. And so at first that was a big obstacle, because Ametros, most people can't understand it or pronounce it. So maybe we didn't pick.
Oops.
It starts with an A, which has an advantage in the alphabet, but we gravitate in the market more towards CareGuard. And at first, people did not know or understand what that was. But over time, as we become the dominant player, then a lot of times people say, I want that CareGuard thing, or that Ametros, or sometimes they even say, not CareGuard, Ametros. And we'll say, it's the same company. We're over here waiting for you. So yeah, we have steered clear of going deep any sort of white label direction, and just trying to continue to compound the interest on our own brand.
Awesome. Well, let's wrap with a little personal chat. You played basketball for Columbia, is that right?
That's right, James. You were digging up on me.
And Columbia is having a little rare moment in athletics right now.
It is. It's pretty exciting. I have to talk about it because usually Columbia is kind of the whipping boy of college sports. We had like one of the longest losing streaks in football. When I played hoops, I was a walk on. I didn't play much, but I was on the team. We had a rough season, and then we turned it around a bit. But yeah, in the last couple of years, so the women's team for hoops won the league, went to the tourney last year. Megan Griffith, the coach over there, she played when I did. She's awesome. And then the men's team for football just tied first for the league, and the men's basketball team this season, they were one of the few undefeated teams in the country. They just lost the other day, so I was hoping we get this podcast done while they're still undefeated, James. But
That's
I think
okay.
now, I think now they're 8-1. But you go and you play sports at some of these schools that are kind of mid-level or low-level D1, and a lot of it's just for the love of the game and the network and the joy of playing. And so it's awesome to see like the level of the game at any level in college has gone up so much, and then to see like your alma mater have a little bit of success, you got to get fired up about that.
Yeah, you do. I mean, and look, it's all good, man. I'm an Aggie. Obviously, we fell off the cliff on the end of our football season.
Ooh, yeah, sorry about that.
We were riding high, and lost 2 games we should have won against Auburn and South Carolina, and then 17-7 against University of Texas. So it's tough falling off the pedestal. But look, the Ivy League, there's a lot of good sports played in the Ivy League, good games, a lot of good players. So I'm excited for you. I toured Columbia's campus with my daughter when we were looking at other colleges in New York. Columbia doesn't
nice.
It doesn't have a musical theater college, so we weren't there to look at musical theater. But I said, look, this is where I'd really like you to go to business school for your MBA. And I know you're a Wharton guy. I know you're a guy, but I was like, Columbia would be an excellent choice for your MBA. But it's always good to see your alma mater do well, especially if you played sports for them like you did. So congratulations on that.
Totally. Thank you. Well, you guys being in Texas got some great football. So, James, I won't tell anybody if you just went in the closet and grabbed your UT hat after that loss.
I know, right? I will look. I will be supporting them in their run for the national title. They're a fellow Texas team, so I will be supporting them for sure. Just much to my chagrin. So it's all good. It's all good. Well, look, it's been a great conversation, Porter. I appreciate you being on the show. Appreciate you talking about this space in general. I think a lot of us don't think enough about medical spend. Just in insurance, we don't think enough about what a huge component of insurance it is, and how it can so easily go wrong. It's obviously we didn't even talk about really like what the problems it creates for the insurance company if the claimant blows through all their settlement money and they can't do their health. There's all kinds of problems for the insurance companies too. So you solve a problem. Claimant, a problem for the insurance company, a problem for the government, and a problem for society as a whole. So I think it was a good conversation to help people understand the breadth and depth of this really multi-trillion-dollar issue. If you sum up all healthcare payments, all settlements over a 20-year period, I mean, you're really looking at a massive monster financially, and appreciate you explaining that to all of us.
Yeah, well put. Well, I'm really grateful to be on with you guys. You have a lot of cool guests, so I was humbled by the invite, and I'll definitely continue as a listener.
I appreciate that, and Rob, always good to see you, my friend. And no conferences for you coming up anytime soon.
Not to the end of the year. Starting up again. Already talking about 2025 shoulder season, kind of springtime, but. Yeah, get to kind of, just enjoy time at home with the family over the holidays. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm all done with conferences. I had my last one this past week, right before Thanksgiving, and I am finito with conferences until Consumer Electronics Show in January. I'll be headed out to Vegas for a couple of days to go check out CES and look at the latest and greatest in consumer tech and what it means for us. And then the bookings have started for 2025 for me. was at around 20 conferences this year. It was a really busy 2024, and got to attend and exhibit and speak at a whole bunch of places, hang out with a lot of great listeners and insurance guests out there. So I'm looking forward to that. To all of our listeners in listener land, thanks for tuning in today to geek out our interview with Porter Leslie from Ametros. See you next time. Enjoy the ride and geek out.